In this video lesson, we're going to be looking at smart objects. Smart objects can be thought of as files contained within your document or PSD, which keep all of their original properties. An example of this is that a smart object can be expanded into a separate and fully adjustable PSD. Smart objects will also not lose any information when resized. These layers or smart objects allow for non-destructive editing. You can, for instance, pull a full PSD into the PSD you're working on as a smart object. I'll show you how to do this now. So I'm just going to go to my desktop and I'm going to get this simple graphic that I've created here and I'm going to pull it into Photoshop. And I'm just going to press enter to place it. And now it's here as a smart object. This little icon in the corner here means that it's a smart object. Now I can double click on this and it'll open up as a separate full PSD. And any changes that I made in here, for instance, making it just a plain graphic, if I press Command S to save that and go back, it's now saved those changes within my PSD. This makes smart objects very useful for composite retouching. I can also transform this, and if I transform it, I can transform it to a much smaller size. And if I change my mind on the placement, I can then make it a bigger size again, and I'm not losing any quality. That may sound a bit confusing at first, so let's just get rid of this quick. And people can become quite overwhelmed by smart objects, but in this video lesson, we're going to be focusing on some very simple use cases for them, namely non-destructive or smart filters. A smart filter is any filter that can be added to a smart object, or any filter that is added to a smart object. These filters remain fully adjustable and are transferable from one smart object to another. I know this is still a bit confusing, but bear with me and I'll show you how it works. The best use for smart objects in beauty photography is with the liquify filter. Because you're not doing heavy liquify in most beauty images, this is the perfect way to save your liquify that is easy to transfer whenever needed. Smart objects offer the full ability to adjust any details in the layers that you've included into the smart object at any stage after you've applied your liquifying to it. And this can't be done without smart objects. If I was going to do it without a smart object, I would have to create a stamp visible layer once my retouching was done, and I'd have to apply a liquify to that layer. And then if I got any revisions, I would have to go back, do those revisions, and if I hadn't saved my liquify as a mesh, I'd have to recreate the stamp visible layer and I'd have to redo the liquify completely, which might result in a slightly different liquify, which if you're working with a client is not ideal. Basically, smart objects give us the freedom to apply liquify as a filter or as a smart filter at any point and not worry about the possibility of later revisions. There are two ways you could approach creating a smart object to apply your liquify or smart filter to, and I'll talk you through the pros and cons of both and which method I prefer. So let's start with the first method, and I'm just going to delete this layer here, which is the liquify layer. Now, the first method is where you select all your layers and you convert them to a smart object by right-clicking and press Convert to Smart Object. And now it's converted them to a smart object. You can see it's got that icon in the bottom there. So now that it's a smart object, I'm going to apply smart filter. So I'm going to go to filter and liquify. I'm just going to do some light liquifying to the neck here, the neck and shoulder area. Just very light liquifying. I don't like to do too much, and you don't generally need to do too much in beauty. And I think I'm going to leave it there. There you go, that's the liquify applied. You can turn these visibility buttons on and off here to see the effect applied or not. And now if I need to change anything, all I do is I double click on the smart object, and let's say I need to make the image a lot brighter. We can go in and just do a bit of an unrealistic brighten there, something like that, and just save that and close it. And as you can see, it's now applied that effect and I haven't had to redo my liquify. So the downsides to this method are that I can't see my layer stack without clicking into the smart object. I'm just going to delete this now. So you have to click into the smart object to be able to see your layer stack, which isn't ideal. I also found that it doesn't carry across channel masks. Your paths will still be saved in your smart object, but if you work with channel masks, they won't be carried across into the smart object. That's a potential downside to this. But the upside is that you don't have to create a copy merge or stamp visible layer above your layer stack, which does keep your file size slightly smaller. You also need to be careful, as sometimes if you go into the smart object and do some revisions on the edge of an area where Liquify was applied, when you come out of the smart object, and that area will no longer match up with the applied original Liquify. So I'm going to show you the method that I personally like. And for this, I'm just going to go back into my history, go to before we converted it to a smart object. So as you can see, we've now got our layer stack back. And I like to do a method where I create a copy merge layer as my last step on top of my retouching. So I made copy merge layer or stamp visible layer, Command Alt Shift and E. And then I'm going to right click and convert to smart object. And I'm going to name it LQ for Liquify. Then I'm going to go into my filter and I'm going to go Liquify, and I'm going to just do a nice quick Liquify over here. Just like that. I'm going to apply that. And again, you can turn either the visibility icon on the Liquify on and off, or you can just turn the whole layer on and off to see what you've done. And if I wanted to adjust this, all I need to do is double click on the Liquify and I go back into the Liquify. I've got still my Liquify is applied, as you can see, but if I wanted to adjust it further, I could. If I wanted to, for instance, just broaden out this hairline slightly, I could do that. And again, now that's applied along with the previous Liquify I had done. So your smart filters are completely adjustable. And now if I wanted to brush any section of this out, if I didn't like what I had done with the hairline there, I could just brush it out on this mask here. So the downside to this method is that there is a copy merge layer which will increase your file size. But the upsides are that you've got your layer stack available and you can brush out areas, and it's just a lot easier to work with, I think. So now if I have to make adjustments here, what I do is I just turn this off, and now let's say I have to do that brightening again. Let's say I have to brighten it. All I need to do is go Command Alt Shift E, create another copy merge layer, and I convert this to a smart object. And now that it's a smart object, what I can actually do is I can drag the Liquify from this smart object to this one. So what I'm going to do is I usually drag it via the two circles, and I will just put it across, and there you go. It's applied it to this layer now. Let's just make this visible. One thing to note is that if you try and drag it from the actual white block here with that says smart filters, it won't allow you to do it. If you drag it from the Liquify, you'll get those two circles. You just need to make sure you've always got the two circles. You can either drag it from the Liquify, or you can drag it from the two circles and it will drag across. And this is the method that I prefer. My layer stack is fully adjustable and fully visible, and does add a little bit more in terms of the weight of your image or size of your image, but it is, for me, the easier method, and you don't have to worry about any mask edges or anything like that underneath. In both cases though, the Liquify is fully adjustable. And this is basically how you can apply a smart filter, or you can apply a filter in a non-destructive way to a layer. I've found that with beauty retouching, it's the perfect way to apply Liquify.